Hello and welcome to Conversations with the Voice of Reason. I'm your host, Benjamin Boyce, and today's conversant is Russian philosopher Alexander Dugin. In this conversation, we talk about his stance against modernity and for traditionalism and what modernity and traditionalism mean. And we get rather deep into those topics from a historical point of view, talking about Plato, Aristotle, and the rest of those geniuses that give birth to the West. Professor Dugin is incredibly prolific. I highly suggest The Fourth Political Theory, which you can find an audiobook of on the YouTubes as a great introduction to not only his thought, but the way in which his thought unfolds. Very honored to host him. If you enjoy this content, consider liking, subscribing, and donating via the links below. Without further ado, here is Alexander Dugin. Are you currently engaged with teaching right now? Do you have any classes that you're spearheading?
Yes. I'm doing the lectures in the Moscow State University and Moscow University of International Relations.
What's your focus this season?
So this season in Moscow State University of International Relations, I'm giving lectures on multipolarity and civilizational approach to the international politics. And in Moscow State University, I'm giving two different courses. First one is the political theory of the people. So very, very intriguing concept, because people is everywhere, but it is not represented correctly. And the political law and constitutional body. And second course is dedicated to Westernology, the science how to put the West in its organic, natural, historical, geographical limits outside of its universalistic pretension. So how that is methodological work.
I was at this conference in February called ARC, and it was in Britain, spearheaded by Jordan Peterson and a group of people who are ostensibly trying to figure out what the West is. And there's a lot of talk about that, and it seemed like nobody could really define it. It was this big geographical region. It had something to do with what they called Judeo-Christianity. But I was trying to figure out if they had a stronger understanding or flavor of what this construct called the West is. Seems like you're doing the same work. How do we understand like something that big? Where do we start? Historically, geographically, linguistically?
So first of all, I would like to say that recently I have read the book that is called The West, The History of Ideas, written by a certain Georgios Varouksakis, Greek English scholar. Very interesting. I recommend that. That is correct in my opinion. Maybe because he is Greek, he has most normal attitude to the West. He's the part of the West, but he discussed that is big book. And I would recommend it. So the West, the history of idea, Georgios Varouksakis, not Varoufakis, Varouksakis. So he started from kind of the slogan from Plato to NATO. So the West, and according to him, this concept from Plato to NATO isn't correct, because the concept of the West, according to Varouksakis, started it is very recent, and it is not Anglo-Saxon, not British, as most of us thought, but rather French. And it belongs to the special movement, intellectual movement in the France of the 19th century, organized around the sociological circle of Auguste Comte. So he was Auguste Comte first was the first to use the concept of the West in the modern sense, and that was the idea of the special kind of modern civilization from which the Russia should be excluded. So that was a Russophobic concept, the West. From in the origin, he thought that the core of the West should be modern France and some countries around it, but this concept was taken almost immediately by the disciples of the Comte in Germany and in England, and this concept was made something general in British Empire, but that was about the middle 19th century. But origin was in the in the beginning of the century, of 19th century in France. Very interesting. So we think that we use that always, but it is not so. So that is very new sociological concept that was from the origin linked to 2 points: to the modernity and the progress and the modernization, the atheism, materialism, science, secularism, universalism in the Masonic Grand Orient context. That was a kind of Masonic concept, but as well, the other point, the second side of it, it was Russophobia, because it was implemented after the Vienna Congress, when Russia started to influence European politics, and in the conservative sense. So Russia suggested, Alexander I Russia suggested the unification of the traditional Christian monarchies to fight against the atheist, secularist, democratic, bourgeois, Masonic ideology. And Auguste Comte, who was one of the most prominent representative and the speaker of this strategic secularist, Paul has felt very radical way the danger from Russia. Russia pretending to be the part of the conservative Europe was considered by him as the danger to whole modern project of this secular Europe. Very interesting, I think, line of thoughts. That is Varouxakis concept, but that doesn't contradict. It is very similar to the concept that I have elaborated myself, working on the Westernology.
One necessary step of being able to understand a concept as big as the West is to define it against what it is not. So it sounds like they were defining, and they picked Russia for some reason, and said maybe it's the Christianity. So they're defining secular modernity against an older form of Christianity, whereas Russia could need to rely on distinguishing itself or its project against secularism and perhaps Islam too, because of the way that Russia is nested above the Islamic world and to the east of the secular world. So how do we understand these things positively? How do we understand the West positively? And does it include, would you think there is a version of the West that includes Russia? How much of Russia? Which version of Russia?
So, first of all, in that concept that has elaborated Varouxakis, the Islam was not mentioned. And so Islam and Turkey was weak at the time, and it didn't pretend to influence the politics in Europe. So the Europe was in the hand of the secular Masonic groups in the beginning of the century, 19th century, bourgeois revolutions, and I think in two concepts, two meaning. The West is modernity and it is not antiquity. So according to the Auguste Comte, so the West excluded, the concept of the West excluded Middle Ages, traditional Christianity, hierarchy, church,
The feudalistic world order.
yes, everything that was pre-modern. That was the concept of the West excluded pre-modernity, Western, so-called Western pre-modernity, and geographical Russia. So that was a kind of the concept of West was concentrated in the Western Europe and France and the lands around it. And very soon, the center was transferred to the Britain. So it started with France, but it was accepted and developed by Britain. And after that, that was sea power of Mackinder. And this geopolitical development, more or less of the same attitude. So the West is the concept; it is not geography, and that is time more than place. So that is the modernity that excludes Russia and excludes as well Western pre-modernity. So that is more or less as sea power seen by Mackinder. And I have my own understanding. So at the beginning, I tried to explain what Varouxakis thinks on that, and I think his analysis is very pertinent, at least. So very interesting. So my analysis is following. So we could not call Western culture or civilization Greco-Roman antiquity or Christianity before 11th century, before when we were the same. The Byzantine line, after that, Russia came much later, but that was a kind of orthodoxy, Catholicism, based on Hellenistic Mediterranean civilization, and based on the Greece, and based on the Rome, and Greco-Roman antiquity was common to the Orthodox civilization and the Western civilization. The separation, the point of bifurcation was 11th century when two churches have split. The schism, the Great Schism, was the beginning on the concept of the West. And after that came this Middle Age in the Western branch of this Greek, the letter. So the common trunk, and after that, two branches. And Western branches started with the Middle Ages, with the scholasticism. After that, that was the transition period with Renaissance and Protestantism. And the modernity was the result of this joint tendency, Renaissance and Protestantism. They have given at the end the Western modernity, and this Western modernity became more and more modern. So there came the period of modernization of the West, and precisely almost at the highest point of this modernization, the concept of the West, according to Varouxakis, appeared. And so that is, but what is interesting, so we share the same common heritage until 11th century that we could trace in different way from Plato, not to the NATO, that was the Western branch, but from Plato to Putin, for example, from Katechon, from Russian for special military operations, from Plato to Russian special military operation. That is the second branch of the same. So we could not call that West because it is Byzantine, it's Greece, is East. Russian, Eurasian, the other branch. So the West has a sense, the term, if we compare two branches, not before, but if the modern Western people thinks that from Plato to NATO, that they trace this Western line from the bottom, from the roots, and we trace from Plato, from the same roots, following the same trunk until 11th century. But after that, after the split, we are following the completely different direction of civilizational development based on Christian Orthodox Christianity, with special eschatologic metaphysical development, pretending to keep the mission of the Roman Empire in the West against the Charlemagne. That was the second version, and Russia was the heir. According to our self-consciousness, Russia was the heir of this eastern branch. So we come from the same root, but this root was never West. That was the Christian oikumena, the Christian universality, based on Hellenistic culture, and in its turn, Hellenism was based on the Greek and Roman culture. So we are following the different roots from some points, and now we are at the opposite element. Why at the opposite, starting from the same? Because we never, ever have chosen the modernity. We lack all our intellectual history lacks the elements of the modernity that we could easily find in the Western Middle Ages, starting from nominalism, Via Moderna of Franciscans, Franciscans order, Augustinian Hermetic order, the other, they both followed some Via Moderna, that was called Via Moderna in Latin, in the universities of Middle Age. So Via Moderna and Via Antiqua. Via Antiqua was represented by Dominicans monks, and Via Moderna by Franciscan monks. And Russian and Greek history followed always only Via Antiqua. So the modernity, as the kind of the first chapters of the history of the West, started from the point of the split. So modernity begins in the West in the 11th century with Johannes Roscelin, but as well with Joachim de Flore and other Franciscan concept, and nothing of the sort was in our branch. So the West was formed as the concept, starting from this point of great schism, and accumulating more and more elements of the modernity. And what is modernity as concept in that sense? That is abandon of the Plato and of Aristotle. So that was the revolt against Plato, Aristotle, and Neoplatonism, as philosophical approach, that was modernity. So the atomism, Epicurus, Democritus, they were ancient, but found newly in the beginning of this tendency, and finally they have replaced atomism, materialism, have replaced the Platonian and Aristotelian physics, have created the picture scientific vision of the world, and all that ends with LGBT, woke, DEI culture. So that was the train. We have separated. We have bought the tickets from different trains. On the same station in 11th century, we have bought the ticket for the war in Ukraine and defending traditional values against the Antichrist. That was our line in order to keep the via antiqua, the traditional core of Christianity, safe as it was before. So we have bought the ticket of defense of the eternity. And you, in the Western Europe, in the Catholic part of Christianity, you have bought the ticket to the different destination LGBT, destination Biden, destination Fukuyama, and the end of history, and all that you have now. So it is not just by the chance. We have bought the tickets to different destinations, and we are arriving at the final terminal stations of both lines, I think.
Could you explain, most of my audience is definitely Western. Could you explain some of the qualities or developments that have happened on that Eastern branch? What makes you different from us?
So as well, we lack totally any kind of what we could call the externalism. I use the term externalism. That is the kind of ontology, so the vision of the reality, where the reality is put outside of the human soul and human mind. So that is atomism, that is nominalism, that is materialism, that is secularism, individualism, that is the physics of impulse or impetus. So that's something that you are dealing with the reality that is exterior.
There's this objective reality that we can understand through our rational minds.
Not quite opposite. So externalism, that is the idea that there is something totally independent from our mind. So that is some independent and primordial reality of the matter, of some of the things, material things, individual things that exist outside of us, so and independently from us. So that was Western concept. That was the main feature of modernity. So recognition of externality. So external ontology. So everything that exists outside of us, and we are just reflections or just results or conclusions of that. But there is the matter that rules. The matter is. And that is precisely science, mechanics, ontology, that is democracy, that is everything is created from below. So there is the bottom, that in the bottom there is the matter, and the matter grows and gives a kind of, in the process of the growth, some like a subject, some inner world. And we, according to Platonic and Aristotelian ontology, always preserved the idea that quite opposite, there is the spirit who is independent from matter. The matter doesn't exist in itself. It is just periphery of our consciousness, and we are souls and spirits and nothing more. So the external reality doesn't exist. Everything that exists in the spirit, in the mind, in the soul, and that was original teaching of Plato, of Aristotle, of Orthodox Church and Catholic Church until recently, until the end of the Catholicism in the West. So there is the idea that the mind, the spirit, and the soul, immortal soul, and spirit inside of it, they are primordial to the reality. So everything is internal. So that is internal ontology, and we kept this concept from the roots of our common civilization until now. So, and that was embedded in the hierarchy, in the sacrality, in the loyalty to the church, to the empire. Loyalty. There was, and all the modernization came from the modern West. So, communism, physics, materialism, all that was not elaborated, created inside of our civilization, but that was imposed on us by modern West. So it is just colonization. And when we try to return to ourselves, we immediately get out this Western influence and we return to the same, totally same Christian Orthodox spiritual root and the internal ontology embedded in it. Internal ontology, the dignity and the supremacy of the soul. So sovereignty. So sovereignty of the subject. And that is why the spiritual, religious aspect and sacred empire are so dear to us. So our people, our society was considered to be keeper of that, katechan, katechan of internal ontology. And the Western history during last thousand years was precisely quite opposite. That was the movement toward externality. It was not common. It was not immediate. That didn't come immediately after after schism, but that was accumulated step by step. In the beginning, you followed more or less the same tradition as ourselves. You were traditional, sacred, the spirit was in the center, and there were some groups and movements in the West who defended that. For example, the monastic order of Dominicans and others. So there were some tendencies, Thomism, Thomas de Aquinas, and this concept was more or less Platonic, Aristotelian, and traditional. But step by step, nominalism, materialism started to overcome this traditional power, and appeared the new movement, much more developed than Franciscans, the Protestants, after that, the materialism, Enlightenment, Masons, and so on. So, and now that was the end of the tradition of the sacredness. That was desacralization and Zauberung, as Max Weber has said. Max Weber, German sociologist, he has said that the Western modernity is based on disenchantment and Zauberung. disenchantment. The world became profane, became purely materialist. So you could gain only material things. You can lose only material things. And nothing follows after the death
Our
of the
obsession
body.
with GDP as the marker of the value of our civilization.
Absolutely. So that is the result of that. So you have lost this internal ontology, but the greatest philosophers of the West defended that until recently, until Heidegger, Nietzsche, Hegel, Schelling, Fichte, Kant as well, Descartes, Leibniz, many philosophers, Berkeley, defended this dignity and sovereignty of the soul and the spirit, but they have lost finally because they were heroes. We could consider them belonging to us because we see in them the pure reflection of the same spirit, of the same sovereignty of the internal ontology. And we are keepers after the Byzantines, after Greeks, of Roman Greeks, we are keepers of this internal ontology. And that is why we could see who in the West, in the modernity, fought against externalism and who defended this internal ontology as Carl Schmitt and many others. So the West is not just one line. That was the fight. So Western culture is the fight, desperate fight for the dignity of the spirit, but this war is more or less lost now. So the end of the previous previous century was this unipolarity, the end of the history, where the worst tendency of the West has won over the last fragments of the resistance. So that is why we don't refuse the West as such. We refuse modernity in the West. We refuse this Masonic, secular, external ontology that is dominating in the capitalism, and the economy, in the politics, in the culture, now everywhere, in the art. But that was not always so. So you fought, in our opinion, in Russian opinion, you fought until recently, until now. Maybe your last conservative revolution is Trumpism, and MAGA is the something against the last explosion of this rare elements of the tradition and the spirit in the West. So that is why we regard what is going on in the West with concern, not with just
Spite.
yes, absolutely. We suffer with the West. So the Western fall, and we consider that you are falling down and down and down. You are becoming the civilization of Satan and Antichrist. But we deplore that. We have compassion to that, because your fate is somehow the mirror of the fate of the humanity. And so that is a bit complicated attitude. So we feel compassion, we feel solidarity with all the traditional elements in the West, and not just by pragmatism, not just by calculation, geopolitical calculation. No, that is much more. That's moral compassion. That is deep spiritual feeling. You know, we suffer seeing what you are doing during last century, but sometimes we need to resist, to fight against the West, because fighting the West, we are fighting not just the other nation with some quarrel about territories and so on. That is much more. That is the fight against tradition and modernity. And Russia is tradition. So we are the pole of the sacred tradition, in spite of all appearance, including in the communist time, when we were lower than you. So we have embraced totally wrong atheistic satanic ideology. But in spite of that, the core, the heart of Russian people transpired against that. So it is difficult to explain. So we need the new tools of historical and sociological study, research to understand that. But we Russians will feel that when the communism ended, everybody came to the church. Why? It shouldn't be so. Logically, we passed by the atheistic 7 decades of the radical totalitarian atheism, and after that, everybody is in church. So the core wasn't damaged of Russian people, and I think that the Western society, in its spiritual foundation and basis, is damaged, and that is why you embrace the modernity as something natural, as your destiny, and we try to resist the Western modernity precisely because it is not natural to us. It is imposed. It is a kind of the product of import for us. So we have no modernity. We have eternity, not modernity.
I've been learning more about Russia, specifically the fall of the collapse of communism and then the rise of Putin. And there's a biography of Putin. I don't know how accurate it is, but it's very thorough. It's called The New Tsar, I believe. And one thing that stood out about Putin's character, first of all, his rise to power sort of just happened. It seemed providential. He was just the right guy at the right time. But one marker of his character was complete loyalty to the KGB, complete loyalty to Yeltsin. That was his main, the main line, it seemed like, his character. And it helped me to understand his rulership style or his leadership style as he is Russia and Russia is him. It's almost a return to a monarchical understanding of the leader being just a part of the state and the state being a part of the people. And there's not this demarcation that we have in the West where we have elective governments where you represent the people, but there's a very stark individualistic kind of identity with our politicians. I'm wondering, how does Putin, if he does, represent what you're describing with this relationship, this deeper relationship, or this nature that is more Russian that we don't really understand? We see him as a dictator or as a czar, but he might be a product of his people. Does that track? How do we understand Putin versus NATO as these terminals of these two branches?
So I think that you are totally right, quite right about special character, character of Putin. And he is not the Tsar as a tyrant, as some individual that tries to impose its individualistic will on the other. So that was tyrant in Greece, tyrant. So just individual without any legitimacy, a special historical, social, sacred legitimacy, who takes the power and imposes his own individualistic preferences, wills, appetites, and so on all the other. That is tyranny. And Putin is something opposed, something contrary of tyranny. He was brought to the power by chance, not by the will, not by the plan. Not by the scheming, just by the chance. So something casualty. So there was nobody to grant to Yeltsin, who was falling precisely thanks to his orientation to the West. He was falling, and there was the only one person around who could grant the kind of continuation, could save the situation, including for the Yeltsins and his family. So he was pragmatically chosen by the oligarchs on the eve of the collapse, total collapse of the state. So the Islamic radicals were inside Moscow already, blowing up the buildings. So we have lost the Chechen War, the separation of Northern Caucasus started. So the other regions of Russia claimed to their sovereignties, and nobody could to say
there wasn't the
anything
political
against.
or the financial will or ability.
Yes, absolutely. And Russian nationalism was rising, and it could destroy everything. So, and on the eve of the total destruction, there was the only guy loyal to Yeltsin and maybe capable to save situation, and he was appointed as a new president. He wasn't so much chosen, so nobody knew him at the time. So he was the shadow figure from around Yeltsin. He was totally unknown. And when he came to the power, he immediately made some steps that everybody believed in him. He has gained the campaign against Chechnya, against the separatism. He has put out the oligarchs, and he started to recreate the verticality of the power. And all that was on demand. Putin, when he came to power, he used to say, "Oh, I'm just manager. I'm just for a time being. I'm just a manager loyal to my organization. I was appointed here. I will do my best, but I have no understanding of sacred nature of state, of civilization. I'm a liberal, pro-Western politician that just want to re-establish the order and the sovereignty to the society that was on the eve of self-destruction." So he was just technical figure. He pretended to be. But the will of the people and the will of the Russian history transformed this mediocre personality that surrounded Yeltsin in something much greater than he pretended to be. He dreamed to be. So Putin is creation of people in the history, not of himself. He is just individual. He just Russian, but he is Russian, and that is very important. And being Russian, he was open to Russian collective unconsciousness. He kept it in himself. So it is not just he didn't consult them in books or speaking with the other. Yes, statistics or so polls, and so he was Russian and he is Russian. So he could read the book of Russian history in his own soul. So, and we demanded the people that is Tsar on demand. That is not Tsar by its usurpation of power. He's contrary to dictator or authoritarian figure. We want him to become dictator. We emperor, Tsar. We want him to become what we dream. Our people dream Russia should be the great, independent, traditional, sovereign power. He resisted against that claim during many years. He didn't want to play this role. He was really humble man, and he said, no. I'm just a manager. I am just serving I am technical person. I just serving, doing my best for save my country and society, but I have no ambitions at all to be Tsar, to be sacred, to restore empire, to create tradition. I just want to do my job well and to defend the sovereignty of my people and to preserve the order, because if not, everything will be immediately destroyed. And he was totally right in that. But the people, the society, the history, the Russian identity insisted that he would turn on something different. So that was a kind of Tsar on demand. That is a very specific role that is monarchy from below. We pushed this system because we kept and we still keep and will keep forever this concept of order in our souls. So that is sacred empire. The mother Russia, it is empire with its own mission. So that is secret or open, but it is always here. And people started against himself, against his own individual personal inclinations. He's much more humble. He started to accept that. He could not resist that. He started to say, okay, if you insist, okay, if you want that. So he is the Tsar in spite of himself, something like that. But not just the chance now became the destiny. So it seemed like the chance and something casual, but now it is. We see in Russia, we Russians, we see that was the destiny. That was providence. That was much more than just arbitrary choice of the declining idiot Yeltsin and his corrupted surroundings. So that was the kind of sign of destiny, and Putin was chosen to save Russia and to accomplish the restoration of Russian identity. And what is Russian identity? What is Russian civilization? That is from Plato to Putin. So that is important because he almost personally has demanded to develop this Westernology, to understand. It is not just our initiative. That was more or less a kind of order we received from him to develop the foundation of our civilizational state. So that he wants his last mission to restore civilizational foundations, traditional values, the illumination of history. He has signed decree that Russian society should be illuminated by its own history. So it is not enlightened, illuminated. So it is not just that study history, but to understand the history, to get the sense, the meaning of Russian history. So that is very important. So he is really metaphysical. Today, Putin of today, it's metaphysical leader of the world, one of the other. And we hoped Trump could become something like him. Maybe in spite of him as well, in spite of all the history, it seems that it was in vain, our hopes. But maybe still we suggest we hope still, in spite of all, that Trump has abandoned almost all his MAGA ideas, but maybe he will return to that. We need to have the kings. We need to have emperors. The time of emperors, democracy has failed. That is totally wrong. Liberalism, democracy, individualism, this kind of materialism, secularism, all that you should get into the thrash. We need to restore the real values, traditional values based on the beliefs, on the religion, on the church, not only us, but as well you. So that everybody. And what is going on in China, in India, in Islamic world, that is the same tendency. So everybody is returning to the civilizational states, to the empires, to the traditions. Narendra Modi recently has said that he is representative of the God, of Indian God. He is Paramatma. He is higher self of Indian society, and that was not the joke. So we are now everywhere in the world we are returning to the roots, and I think that that is Russia. Is showing the example of that. So that is natural process. It is not imposed from the top. So it is totally demanded from the masses. It is grassroots will of our people to make Putin some sacred figure. It is not dictatorship. It is not just the maniacal mania of greatness. But that's absolutely opposite.
That brings us to your other course about people or the people. And I think that in order to understand what you're talking about, we have to understand what is a people that would want to have its destiny reflected in a leadership and in a hierarchy and in a state. So how do we start to understand a people of Russia, a people of America, a people of Europe, so far as they are able to resist the globalist trajectory of mass importation of different peoples, and then this bureaucratic EU, NATO, just grayness that is leeching their collective will of a people. How do we start to understand that abstract concept of the people?
So first of all, it is not banal. It is not linear. So when I started to make my course on the political concept of the political theory of the people, I have discovered very interesting thing. First of all, in the majority of the modern constitutions, political constitutions, people is considered to be the keeper of the sovereignty. So everything is made in the name of the people. That is the fact. But at the same time, there is not one description of what the people is. So no in law, in political science, nothing. So they say you are people, you are sovereign, and what is the people, who is the people? Silence, nothing. So everybody should understand that as you wish, but nothing. And I starting from this point, I started to make the research of how we came to such a situation in the history. So interesting. So people was the concept of the third estate, not the first clergy, neither first clergy nor second aristocracy, nobles, but third estate. Okay, third caste. First caste, spiritual, as all in the European societies. As Georges de Maizière has shown, second, warriors, aristocracy, and clergy, spiritual people, sacerdotes, and warriors, they were not the people. So the people was the rest. The rest then first and second castes. So that was this third caste. Okay. But if we consider European traditional society almost until 20th century, so what was the majority of these third castes? That they were the peasants. But the peasants never ever were represented in the political concept. In democracy, in the bourgeois revolution and socialism, social democracy, French Revolution, no peasants. So peasants were excluded, but they represented, until recently, the absolute majority of the third caste. But who was the third estate, tiers état? They were bourgeois. The people of the cities and not of the camps, not the peasants. So there was the huge simulacrum and the stealth of the concept of the third caste of the people by the urbanistic groups, rich as bourgeois or poor as proletarians, but neither of them were the people. That was 5% of population of third caste living in the cities, and they have usurped, they have taken on them the mission to represent the people. So that was the huge crime accomplished against the people, because in the name of the people have spoken those who represented the small minority of very special social anthropological type. So, and I think all the evils of the modernity is precisely about that. So
it's erasing that the people, erasing the peasants.
Absolutely.
Erasing the people who work the land, who create the food, casting them as backward, usually persecuting them in the name of them.
Absolutely. As in Vendée and the French Revolution, because the peasants were the main goals of extermination. So the urbanistic Democrats and bourgeois and socialists and Jacobins, they destroy their own peasantry. They consider them to be counter-revolutionary class, monarchy, Christian, and so on. So more than that, the peasants, they had, and they have still, when they exist, they had special relations to the earth, to the world, to the cosmos. So they had special world vision, absolutely unknown to the people from the cities, from the towns, and unknown for the aristocrats and clergy. So they
the
just
merchant class, yeah.
Absolutely, they didn't care about this world vision. So the absolute majority of the people was totally abandoned and forgotten by modernity, Western modernity. In the name of the people, everybody passed except the people itself. So that was the huge crime, historical, conceptual crime. And all three political theories, liberalism, communism, and nationalism, were based on the normal type of the urban citizenship. Citizenship, it is not about the peasantry, about farmers. Citizen, it is about city. The same bourgeois, it is about the Burg. Burg, it is the city in German. And so the people was replaced by individuals living in the city in normal liberalism, by proletarians as poor individuals living in the city in socialism, social democracy, and communism, or nationalism that was as well based on the same bourgeois and proletarian living in the city. So no representation, political representation of the peasantry. So that was extremely interesting result of my course, and according to my vision, I think that was the problem. So we have oversee the main content, the main meaning, the main mass of the people, and working in the name of the people, we have destroyed the people. So modernity, pretending to give the power to the people, has given the power to everybody except the people, to mostly to people, to citizens, to those who live in the town. And that was not just the chance; that was the main line of people strategy of the political modernity, and that was crime committed by Bolshevists, represented proletariat, by bourgeois, by liberals, by oligarchy, and the power to the people means strictly the power to the peasants. But the problem is the peasants don't want power.
They don't want
They
power.
absolutely,
They have a natural resistance to universalism. They're
absolutely,
steeped in their particularity. And that's what makes
absolutely,
them disgusting and revolting to the universalists and to the
absolutely.
citizens.
Absolutely, they don't want to have power. They don't want to fight for power. They want
To grill.
to grow, to live peacefully, to make their work, to cooperate with whom they need necessary. They that is natural resistance against modernity, against the politics. And in the pre-modern times, they delegated the power to the aristocracy, to clergy, to the fathers, and they understood that we need to have something universal as a church, for example, church fathers, and they agreed with that. Maybe they didn't understand very well a theology, but they agreed. Let you be there, and they understand the necessity to defend the country, to defend secure the sovereignty, and they gave the part to the church and the part to the warriors, to the aristocrats, to the nobles, as a normal. But they didn't want to intervene in the process. They believed in the warriors and in the spiritual fathers, but they didn't want to take the power from them. That was a very balanced system. And bourgeois revolutions, in the name of the people, they started to destroy everything, and they started to destroy first of all the people. That is why I think populism, modern populism, is much more than just superficial reaction
It's a
against globalists.
reemergence of this natural order.
I think yes. That is the intent, a kind of first glances, first signs of the possible reversement of the situation. And that's very important. If we consider the people as the political subject with all its speciality, so we need not just claim to restore aristocracy and church, but first of all, we need to restore the dignity of the peasantry. So we need to add to our traditionalist revolution very important elements. So it is not in order to subjugate people, to control it, but to give to him the right and the possibility to live peacefully, to live in the situation in the world they want to live. So that is the kind of salvation of the people, not as we or, for example, other castes consider it, but as it is. So I think that is very important and futuristic and maybe advanced aspect of our research. It is not just restoration of what was. We should do something better than existed. So we need to create the world better than it was with tradition, but we should find and rediscover people. So we need to rediscover real people outside of this perverted concepts that Western modernity has made of it.
Small little poke at you. You said the word better, to make something better. How is that not progressive? What distinguishes that from progressivism, from continual refinement toward an end, a utopic end? How do we know in what direction is that better oriented?
So, because I'm traditionalist, so I'm in favor of sacred tradition, and I see the history of as a decline. So normally the history is decline, so that we go further and further from the paradise, from the golden age. We are distance is growing, and the better is hiding behind the horizon. So we are getting into decline, as Nick Land has said, degenerative wretched, that worse and worse and worse. So in that sense, the better or the best is behind us already, so that we are far away from it in the beginning. But at the same time, I think that there is some revolutionary element in my vision. So being further and further from the golden age, and paradoxically, at the end of the time and the end of the decline, of the cycle of decline, we are approaching somehow to the same golden age. So it is not, it is too far behind and too near to us, too close to us, in front of us. So we need to make a kind of leap in the future, not making better what we have. What it is good, we could not make better, because that is the worst than we could imagine what we have. We need to overcome all that. We need to make a leap to the restoration of the totality of the sacredness, not by the way back, but by the way ahead, but not in evolutionary sense, not better and better, not progressive sense. I think progress is totally wrong. I think revolution is good and progress is bad. So conservative revolution, it is the leap forward, but not just step. And we should not ameliorate what we have. It is impossible. That is the end. We need to make a leap in the new sacrality. And I think that we could not do that without some elements of the people who that is not yet spent. So we have spent many energies, many idols, many concepts, many values. We have lost them. We have used them already. They are used. They could not be reinvented somehow. But the people is the matrix of something new. So I believe in the people as maybe as kind of mass that brings in itself unconsciously the God. So the new sacredness. The Dostoevsky thought likewise. So I think that people is sacred, and its sacredness is still unknown and still unused. It is not something just already taken and spent. That is that the people preserved in its heart and its center something unknown, something great, and we need to awaken that. So I think that is how I interpret the Great Awakening. So it is not. It should not go. Should not come from clergy, from church, or from the state, or from warriors, aristocrats. It should come from the people. And from the secret of the people. So there is secret core of the people that never was touched, never was awakened. It's sleeping inside of the soul of the normal people, the people who represent not the cities but the earth, the people who represent the real identity.
There is a distinction, I think, that you brought up already about the people that you're talking about and describing right now is tied directly to the earth, to place. Modernity is tied to time. You brought that up too. The break between our modern West is a severing from what is before, and a look at anything that is 10 years ago as regressive, as somehow dirty, and not as enlightened as we are. This process that takes us, it deracinates us, it takes us by the roots out of time, and causes us to look down on our ancestors in a variety of different ways, and constantly apologizing for the sins of our fathers. The return to people is tied to a place. I think that the return of the redemption of the warrior class and of the clergy and of the kings is to reattach its priority to place, and the taking away of the globalist mindset, the monetary mindset that is just kind of rapidly just spinning off into irreality, into disaster, to serving the people, to serving the place, to being rooted in place, and then to reestablishing a balance between place and time.
Exactly. But what is interesting, I recently finished the book, 2 volumes on the nature of time. And it is not so easy with time. So they have nothing. They have those who rule the world of today. They have no connection neither to space nor to time, because the time, according to Plato, is the moving image of the eternity. If you take out eternity, it is image of what? Of nothing. So is there no more time? So it is moving image of nothing. If there is moving image of nothing, that is no time. So they have no time. So the progressivism, the progressive attitude is just oblivion. So you are falling into the oblivion. You could not have nothing with you. You could not compare. You are losing the very nature of time. So those who say we are ruler of time, or they are nothing, they are slaves of nothing. So nihilism, that is the only explanation of the situation in the West. So when they discover something new, it is something very old, for example, atomism and physics of impulse and so on. So all that already existed. So they think that they have discovered something new in last 10 years, but in that time they have forgotten something much more important. So that is the degenerative wretched. So you are losing and losing and losing. It is the decline and falling down. So on the pretext to have a time, the time belonged to us, the space belonged to us. All three castes belong to us, and they have nothing. They could not manipulate knowledge. Now they have power of illusion. So only thing they are slaves of the illusion, because they serve the devil, and devil is the master of illusion. But devil doesn't know anything serious and the depth. He is the master of illusion, and I think they have neither time nor space. And our this conservative revolution that I'm fighting for during all my life, all my efforts, it is restoration of everything. So nothing belonged to them, nothing, everything belonged to us. They are really deplorable. They are absolutely poor. So they have everything, the money, the power, the technology, the media, but at the same time, they are poorest creatures in the world. They have no freedom, no soul, no real might. So they illusion, and that is why we could easily defeat them if we make this leap into the future. If we fight only for the old time, if we are still only conservatives, we are doomed. So we should add to the defense, legitimate defense of the traditional values. We need this futuristic aspect, and because it is not the fight for the past, it is the fight for the eternity. And who control the eternity, control the time, and control everything. So we could not claim to control eternity, but let us be controlled by eternity. That is other thing. Let us follow the providence of the God, and we will win.
Yeah, it requires humility.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't want to say that you're completely unique or completely new in your ideas, but your ideas are decidedly different than most. What happened in your life that opened you up to thinking in this way that is outside of what the normal course of the history of thought is? What are some of the moments or insight that you received to allow you to look outside these systems that most of us act within?
So that is a long story. To put a long story short, in my youth, in the communist time, I was stricken by the feeling that everything around myself is totally false. So people, ideas, the structures, administration, everything was based on lie, based on futility, on the nihilism, and I started to find an alternative point of support. So I've tried to find something that could help me to stay against all that is considered totally unworthy. And I have discovered the small group of people who have introduced me into traditionalism. I have learned English, French, German, Spanish, the other languages in order to read the books of traditionalists, and most of all of René Guénon and Julius Evola. I have translated immediately one of them into the Russian, and that was from the early youth that when I have obtained the sense of total security in that. So that was the response. The demand was a revolt, existential revolt against the materialism, Soviet state, but that was immediately ended very soon. Ended with acquaintance with traditionalism, and everything was totally clear. We are living in the Kali Yuga, in the end of time. So there is the materialism that has won over the spiritualism, but we need to fight against that tradition. There is no tradition, but there are few traditionalists. So we need to be traditionalists in spite of tradition, not because of tradition, but in spite of its absence. So we have no tradition, but we still will fight against the world of modernity. And that gave me the huge amount of power for all my life. So from that moment, I'm following only that path. So I am traditionalist, but step by step, I'm discovering more and more philosophical, intellectual, scientific elements that enrich my position. So I don't repeat the same words of Guénon and Evola as the majority of traditionalists do, but I try to apply the principles of traditionalism to different fields, to sociology, anthropology, geopolitics, political philosophy, history of philosophy, and many other things. And I'm trying to put the traditionalist concepts and theories into the practice. So I'm fighting in the society, in the mass media, in the everywhere, in the politics, in order to defend and promote these traditional principles. And I'm succeeding in that because I started from the total rule of communism. After that, I was a witness of its fall. There was the liberalism. I was witness of fall in my country of liberalism. After that, that was shy sovereignism of early Putin. I witnessed as it has ended, and now that is a kind of return of this traditional value already on the level of the decree of the decrees of Putin. Putin has signed some years ago the decree of the defense of traditional values, and among these traditional values there is mentioned the primacy of the spirit over matter. It is incredible. So to live until the moment where our president makes a law that the spirit is above of the matter, and it's not just words. That is totally reversal of what I started with. So what I lived through with liberalism, with communism, with everything. So, and that is a really miracle, because my views are almost the same, are almost unchanged. So, I 40 years ago, I had totally the same vision of the world, but the world has changed many times already. So, I have this very strange feeling that I existed from the beginning of the world. So, because so many paradigms have changed. So different countries. I lived in the Soviet Union, in Russian Federation, in Russia with Crimea, so with 3 or 4 dominating ideologies accepted by majority. So for me, for example, the rule of the globalist liberal groups in the West is something absolutely ephemeral. That is just as fog, smoke on the water. So nothing, absolutely nothing. So they are nobody. All these leaders, they seem to be so powerful, controlling press, controlling media, controlling politics, economy. They are absolutely zeros. So I have seen in my life so many huge figures coming to nothing and appearing from nothing to becoming giants. So it is all illusion. So if we stay true to our principles, we can overcome everything. So I have the great hope, and I have trust. I have great trust in the people's soul, I think, in mind, so, and a will and a liberty of the inner self. So the people convinced in their principles, they can win everything. So all that is external is finally the illusion. So, and if we start from inner worlds, if we improve something inside, so everything outside is improved as well. So that is inner and spiritual revolution that we need, I think. And that is not just excuse or escape. In my case, for example, I'm totally engaged as well in the political and social battles, and that doesn't destroy my concentration on the spiritual matters.
What are some? You brought up the principles of traditionalism. What are some temptations of the traditionalist? Some places that they can fall or go wrong?
So, first of all, traditionalism, I think that is, Dominicans, the Dominican monks in the history of the Middle Ages, they had very interesting and very important, very traditionalist concept: salvation by the truth. Salvation by the truth. So if we search truth, we will be saved. Because the truth, the final truth is the Christ, the final truth is God and the heaven and the church. And if we search correctly, sooner or later we will find precisely that. So if we are in search of ultimate truth, sooner or later we get there. We'll come to God. So the salvation by the truth is very good thing, and I think that is the essence of the traditionalism. So traditionalism is not just humility, not just devotion. It is the quest for the truth, and this radical quest for radical truth, it is I think, the most important and most beautiful feature of traditionalism. So truth is more important than everything else, and if we are in search of it, we will sooner or later we get the result. So, but the only thing, not power, not success, not satisfaction, not the comfort of the soul, but truth. A truth can be very drastic and very, very, very brutal as well. But the quest for the truth is essence of traditionalism. I think as well. The second point, I think that traditionalism it is a truth in somehow. So if we are traditionalists, we are closer to the truth than just religious people, because we are understanding the distance between what is normal and what we have today. And in the religions, in different religions, you could lose it. You could lose the distance, and you will be engaged in the modernized form of religion, because we could not make difference without traditionalism. So traditionalism, it is the key to understand what is the religion, and so that is very important. So traditionalism, it is more important than religion. Religion is higher than traditionalism. You could not replace the religion by something other. But without traditionalism as the key, you could not get there. So
it's
you will miss.
what Jesus said about the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So your anthropology has a religion, but the religion doesn't make any sense without the anthropology, and the anthropology needs the religion in order to fulfill its spiritual.
Yes, exactly. So traditionalism, it is the key to the religion, the key. Without that, you could take for the religion something that is not, kind of simulacrum. So in order to make the difference between simulacrum and the authenticity, religious, spiritual, you need follow the path of traditionalism. So that is very important. And I think the second point in traditionalism, that is practical and active traditionalism, because there is the theoretical traditionalism of Guénon, and there is practical traditionalism of Evola. And Evola made many faults, many errors, mistakes during his life, but in my opinion, that it is much better to make such kind of mistakes than to do nothing. So to put something in the practice, it is always dangerous. It is always a risky thing, and I think that traditionalists should get in that. Should enter in the danger and the world of danger and the world of mistake and of error, in spite of the threat, despite of the danger to fall. So we should not be afraid to make something wrong, because we're living in Kali Yuga, and I think nothing could be taken for granted. We need to fight for every small achievement very hard, because we are living in the hell. And in order to get out of it, to change here something, we need to fight radically. So I think that when they say Guénon or Evola, it is totally wrong. Guénon and Evola. So we should follow Guénon as the main framework of traditionalism, and we need to get the way following Evola, trying to apply our principles to the world around us and inside of us. So I agree with both of them. They both, but I think that they both are very important. So, but we need not just admire them or only study them, but we need to apply them. We need to put that into the practice. That's, so the traditionalism is not only philosophy, but it is a kind of radical political ideology that should be implemented in the society.
How do we
And
implement it? Like go to church or join a community club, go bowling? Like what are some small traditional application?
I think we need to create cultural, philosophical, political clubs, circles, and start revolutionary network in order to destroy modern world totally and to restore the traditional world. So it is a revolution, a revolt against modern world, and we need to be as revolutionary. Church is our headquarter. Clubs of philosophical use and not only use, it is our army. Internet on streams, all kind of platform and network should be used in order to promote traditionalism. We need to awaken the soul and the minds of the people. So we need, that is counter-enlightenment. We need to enlightenment, but not from materialist, atheist, not enlightenment of French. We need a kind of counter-enlightenment. We need to enlighten the people with the eternal light of sacred tradition. In Christianity, because it is our tradition, and other sacred tradition for different civilizations, and we need to get to the root. And in order to get to the root, we should not get back, but we should make a step forward, the leap forward. So we should attack, we should be offensive. I'm advocate not of defensive traditionalism, as escapism and so on. We need to go church in order to get the orders from there. So when we see how the priest preaches evangel, we need to put that into practice. We need to behave like that, like the apostles, like the pupils of Jesus Christ. We need to bring his truths in our society. We should be absolutely intolerant towards the perversions of modernity. We should fight against that socially, physically, culturally, as we can, economically, politically. We should create the army, the global, universal, pan-human army of traditionalism in order to fight with all the means we can. There are the society where the ways are open. India, somehow China, Russia, many Islamic countries are open to receive traditionalism in form of Sufism, of Shiism. There is Iran. There is newly decolonizing African countries. There is Latin America, and including there is the Trump's America. So I think if we have enough convention and powers, we could fight there, supporting Trump and coming through the channels open there in United States of America, promoting American values. It is not about promoting Russian values or Eastern values, promoting American values against modernity. So American people, so values, so populist movement in Europe. So we need to be consolidated, our coming individuality, fighting against modernity in outside and inside of ourselves, and so we need to fulfill traditionalism. We need to apply for traditionalism. It is so. I agree. Go to the church, but not to escape from the world, but from to receive the orders. So they preach the normal priests, not modern woke priests, normal traditional priests. They preach evangel, and we need to take that as the ultimate truth, not just the past. So every word of Jesus Christ is eternal. We need to follow that. That is truth, not in the modern science. And we need to enter in the field of the modern science in order to restore it, to correct that, because it is wrong science. originated in the beginning of the modernity. So we need to overcome modernity. Modernity is the enemy, not the capital, not just capital as well. But modernity is the main enemy. And if there is something in the West that is not still touched by modernity, it is on our side. So everything that is anti-modern is our ally, I think, in the West or elsewhere.
What if my tradition is modernity? What if one aspect of your book, The Fourth Political Theory, is that you go through liberalism, fascism, and communism, and you make them less scary, and you say, well, there's this thing that might be destructive, but it doesn't really have any power, and you pick and take what are the good aspects of it, and you leave the rest behind. What about modernity, or what aspects of modernity are just a part of the world now that grew out of the natural way that history flowed, that if we make modernity the enemy, we might be leaving good things behind? Or is there anything in modernity that we need to use going forward?
So I think that inside of modernity, and the Western modernity, last 5 centuries, maybe more, everything that was modern was bad and evil, but everything that was somehow opposite and contrary in the modernity, inside of modernity, but was oriented somehow open or secretly against the main line of modernity, that is of value. For example, phenomenology. It is modern philosophy, but it is restoring Aristotelian understanding of soul of the things. Starting from Brentano to Husserl and Heidegger, they are excellent, brilliant. All this phenomenological tradition should be saved. Structuralism, Hegelian dialectics, very correct, but it needs to be read with correct lenses. Schelling, partly Böhme, Nietzsche, existentialism, anthropology, new anthropology. Leibniz, the Kantian, some aspect of Kantian philosophy with the dignity of the reason that is independent from the matter. So if we make a kind of analysis of modern Western thinkers, tendencies, scientific teaching, so we could discover the huge amount of the very valuable things. So we need to make due diligence of modernity, because it is intoxicated, intermingled, entangled with many heteroclite elements. So we need to make a kind of audit of modernity and to find the valuable elements inside of it, but it is not linear, it is not banal. We could not say this thing we accept, that we reject. We need to make a very detailed, very concentrated analysis of the modernity in order to find in romanticism, for example, many in British tradition, including, I think, some elements of pragmatism, American pragmatism, pragmatist philosophy could be used as something very positive and very comparable with some Buddhist, Zen Buddhist concept. So we need to reinterpret the modernity from the counter-modern position. So not just refuse it, but refuse what is modern in the modernity and rescue what is not modern, what is the continuation of the deeper level of the identity. So we need to make a revision of modernity from the counter-modern point of view. And I have made some efforts to do that, and the result was absolutely brilliant. So result, because we have the main figures we consider to be the highest persons, thinkers and artists and so on of modernity will appear to be not modern. So very interesting. The most interesting concepts and theories and figures and schools of modernity, they have nothing to do with the main direction of modernity. They were normal, and modernity was their opposite. So that is not obvious. But if we start to make this due diligence of modernity, we will find what is really that we have perverted image of ourselves, of modernity. That modernity is not so modern as it pretends to be.
Can you? I'm trying to understand, maybe on a phenomenological level, what modernity is. What you're talking about it. What is it that is wrong that you're describing about modernity? Is it a pride, a Faustian outside of history, or man is God, or like, what is the element of modernity that causes it to be satanic, false, destructive? What are we actually fighting against?
So that is a serious question. So in my analysis of modernity, the main blame, main crime of modernity, it is, as I have said already, the emphasizing the externality, something external. So in Socrates is starting from the affirmation that everything is inner. So the world is inside of us, and our souls are immortal, and our spirit is immortal, and everything that we have in the world, they are just outskirts of the soul, and they represent the projections of the soul. So everything is inside of us. Everything is all events, all the movements, all the results, all the principles, and all the ends are inside. So the dignity of inner world, it is tradition. Modernity started with the affirmation that the external world is real, and external world is the primordial, is something that appears independently from us, that is working on its own laws, and it goes first. So we are just results of some material soap, material process, accident. So that is totally wrong. But the modernity and the physics and the mechanics of Newton, in the structure of political society based on individualism, of atomism, starting from Hobbes and Locke and all other. The modernity is based on this supremacy of the external, and that is modernity. But everything that is modern is more or less touched, more or less intoxicated by these elements. But inside of the last 5 centuries of the Western modern history, there were so many figures that thought differently. They defended the independence of the human subject, of the reason, of the soul, and they created the theories totally opposition to the claim of externality. So they defended internality and the sovereignty of this internal ontology, many of them, and making such. Both of them belong to the modernity, but they defended totally different attitudes, and if that concerns all fields of human intelligence, philosophy, science, arts, literature, everything, politics, society. And if we can distinguish these two lines, we see what is positive in modernity and what is negative. Negative, this essence of the modernity, it is precisely the shift from the inner to the outer, the shift of the reality and the loss of the dignity of the of sovereignty of the soul. And finally, in modern psychology, for example, in modern psychology, in modern physics, neurophysics, and cognitivism, the soul doesn't exist. It's a machine. That is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, it is the last consequence of this loss of the soul. So artificial intelligence, it is the last stage of the externality. We agree that what makes us human is just reasoning, and machine now can reasoning maybe better than us, or almost like us. So AGI, that is the finalization of this process. But we can accept that only if we lose our soul. So that is the final points of the externalization of life, artificial intelligence, or object-oriented ontology. So
just patterns, just accidental meaning-making tokens that
absolutely,
add up to something that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. So and the capitalism was the kind of process that led to it. So it is a bit naive to oppose the modernity to ancient capitalism. Capitalism was the way. There was just previous stations on the same railroad to the total. So capitalism is absolutely modern. That is the idea that money decide everything. Not at all. That money is nothing. Money, it is just illusion of the devil. So they better imagine society without money, with some exchange, with some. But this obsession by money, it is just obsession by satanic illusion. So I think capitalism is wrong, and everything in modernity except what was against it inside of it. Everything is wrong.
Just to give the devil his due, modernity allowed for all of these different thinkers that existed within modernity. I was talking to Jonathan Peugeot. He's a Greek Orthodox icon carver, and I was asking about what kind of works of art did the Orthodox world produce that are in line with the Beethoven and Mozart. We have all these big names in our tradition, Goethe, all the thinkers that you mentioned. Modernity allowed for the fostering of all these brilliant minds that aren't necessarily unparalleled anywhere else, but the sheer diversity of these different characters arose for some reason within that modern landscape. So the modernity did give the openness for so many different brilliant thinkers. I'm wondering if that's kind of a challenge to this thought of modernity as a collapse, but in that collapse, it's released a lot of energy and given rise to so many great works of art and philosophers at the same time. I'm wondering why that is, if that makes sense to you.
So, in any case, we need to look closer on what we call genius. I think that collapse or decline could create as well something beautiful or some images. So, not necessary. I don't think that the diversity or the genius are necessarily linked to the modernity we had in the antiquity, in the Greek antiquity, and in the Middle Ages as well, and at different points of history in Russia as well. So in the Tsarist time, in very, very hard traditional times, we had so many composers, and Dostoevsky and Mussorgsky and Tchaikovsky and many of them were patriots and were traditionalists. So I don't think that is precisely because of modernity they appear. I could not, I dare not, I don't dare to say they appeared in spite of modernity. So I could not affirm that, but I think that we could see the geniuses in modernity and outside of it, just to be correct. So I don't think that is necessary condition to genius to appear. That is modernity. It could appear whenever it appears. So, and we could not order genius. Genius is born as something as extra, something that we don't deserve. So that is a kind of gift to humanity, and it could appear in different times. And it could appear thanks to the surrounding conditions or in spite of them. So in both cases. So I don't think there is direct
can't pin the cause on modernity.
Causal line. So that is, but I think if we consider the real genius, we see in them the sacred dimension. That is obviously sacred, and modernity is something against sacred. So because to be modern, that is to be against inner world and against sacredness. It is profane, as Guénon has said. So if we see in Bach or Mozart or Beethoven some inner world and presence of the spirit, and we see it obviously, so they belong much more to us than to modernity. Everything that possesses this inner dimension, it is on our side.
What's next for you? What's coming up?
And what
books or tours or projects? If people want to follow you in your intellectual development, what is most present for you now and coming up?
So I'm finishing this Westernology concept. I have finished the recent book on the civilizational state that will be published soon. Civilizational state. I have published in Russia different books on multipolarity that I'm developing that many years already. And now I'm almost finished as well the two big volumes on the world philosophy. That is a kind of history of philosophy, explained for all the students. It is not just traditionalist, but it is balanced. I have. That is two big volumes, 2,000 pages both. So two big books, and I think that they could be very useful. Now it is easy to translate that. So if there will be some publisher interested in the West to put that the history of philosophy, more or less neutral, I would say, but only thing I try to include in that as well those philosophers who are more or less forgotten. So that is a kind of I try to give the whole vision of the philosophy of the Western, of antiquity, Eastern, Chinese, Islamic, Jewish, Russian. So in order to see that philosophy is much larger than we presume. So in different civilizations with links and emphasizing the role of the Neoplatonism in Western, Islamic, and Jewish thought. I think Neoplatonism played a crucial role in everything, in theology, in the scholastics, and so on, in Russian history. So we don't pay enough attention to Neoplatonism, Platonism, to ancient Platonism. So I'm Platonist and Aristotelian, and as well I try to identify the roots of the modernity in the antiquity. That's very interesting and passionate because I have found that in the Democrat, in the Epicurus, and the Lucretius Car as well. So we had modernity. Modernity is very, very old. It started from the ancient Greece. It was marginal in ancient Greece, and only in Western modernity it was borrowed and expanded. So that is very interesting. So nothing new. So that is just combination of three versions of the world vision, from above, Platonic, from the center to the periphery, Aristotelian, and from bottom to the top, that is atomist, materialist of Democritus and others. So, and nothing else. So that's all. So we are dealing, all our history of philosophy is dealing with three groups of sets of ideas, combined, opposed, and so on. But we are coming by the rounds, by the circles in the same trap of ancient Greece, and we could not leave it because outside is almost nothing for us. But we need don't blame that or try to revolt that, because we need to accept that and find our own position inside of our heritage. And that is why I think we are all ancient Greeks. So being a Russian, British, or French, or American, finally, if we really start to search our roots, we are coming to ancient Greece. And that was obvious 100 years ago. 100 years ago, everybody in Europe or in Russia would absolutely agree with that, because classical education was that. So
from your perspective, what does Christ Jesus add to that Grecian dialogue that we're stuck in? How does the church influence, bring us up, if it does?
I think that is, the church is the oldest ultimate truth, Christian church, and Christ is God, and we believe in God. But all the reasoning around that, around the church, or that is called theology, it is based on Greek thoughts. So nothing Semitic, because Semites, they didn't develop any kind of original philosophy. So all the philosophy, including in Jewish philosophy and Islamic philosophy, Christian philosophy, it is Greek philosophy. So Jesus Christ is God, so he is above every kind of definitions and distinctions. He is creator of the world. He is Logos. He is Son of God, and he is a perfect God and perfect man. And I think that the real Christianity is concerned much more in Christian Orthodox Church than elsewhere. So that is much more authentic form of the belief in Jesus Christ, and all the theological heritage, tradition around the Christian Orthodox Church is the best way to explain how the God is, who is God is, why he is Holy Trinity. So I think that is the authentic, correct explanation or introduction to God. So I believe in the absolute truth of my Orthodox, Russian Orthodox Church, but I think that as long as the other Christian churches believe in the same God, where they should share something like us. But I think that this heritage, philosophical heritage, theological heritage was partly lost or partly perverted in the other churches. But I don't insist on that. I prefer to find common points that unite us than points that divide us. So I'm against communism, but I'm for the dialogue between traditionalists in different branches of Christian religion and outside as well. So I think that we need as well to have the dialogue between the other traditional religions and to find a common point with them as well. And that is quite possible.
If the West is essentially the Greek conversation, just unfolding over time, how does Christianity make the West as well? Is it mutually dependent, the Greek and the Christian worldview? And what does Christianity add to what we are? What is the essential truth there?
Yes, that is very important. So culturally, Hellenistic civilization was continuing in Christian time as well. So Christian religion was based on the Greek culture and Hellenistic civilization, but the Church and the Christ, that was a very special metaphysical transcendental dimension that we could not replace by just philosophy. So without Greek philosophy, we could not have Christian church as we have. No dogmas, nothing. So absolutely. Theology would be absent, and without theology, no prayers, no symbol of creed, so nothing. Almost nothing, because all that was thanks to the Greek language, Greek philosophy, Greek culture. But without Christ, we could not have the church or religion. So Christ is the transcendental vertical line and everything. That is essence of everything. But interpretation of Christ, of his incarnation, of God, of his birth, eternal birth inside of Holy Trinity, all that is explained with the help of the Greek philosophical and theological tools. So, but Greek culture could not replace Christianity. Christianity is something absolute. But the best way to explain that, to expand that, to receive that was Greco-Roman world, and that is our roots. So we belong to Greco-Roman Christian civilization, and without Christ, it will be not be entire and integral. So it is absolutely necessary element of our identity. Here I disagree with Evola. Julius Evola was against Christianity. I'm absolutely I'm Christian, so I believe in God, Jesus Christ as ultimate truth. But I think that the Christianity is the main axis of our identity, and but in order to preserve or to reinvigorate this identity, we need come before 11th century. So Middle Ages, Christianity in the Western Middle Ages is much better than modern parody on Christianity. But the real Christianity, in order to have the contact with it is before 11th century. So when we were united, we were the same. So that is important. Russia and the West were united in the pre-Great Schism Christianity, and that is a very qualitative aspect, not just history, because the Christianity of the early time and before 11th century, it is absolutely authentic Christianity, and we Orthodox Christians, we want to conserve it, to save it, to preserve it as it was, not adding anything to it. So that is why we are against the Pope, against Catholic, because Catholic, according to the decisions of Pope could add something, and for us, Patriarch could not add anything, add to the teaching of the church. Patriarch is important to explain something, to give some advices, but he could not distort the dogmas. He absolutely has to follow it. So when Pope say, "I am blessing homosexual marriage," that is impossible in Christian Orthodox worlds, Eastern Christian world, because that was not the teaching of the Christ, and everything that wasn't the teacher of the Christ could not be accepted. So the time doesn't play any role in that. So if we see something wrong, we need maybe modern, progressive. We should say if it contradicts to our teaching, we abandon, we refuse that. We destroy that. So that is very important. So this kind of fundamentalism of Orthodox Christian fundamentalism, I praise it. So that is because we are appealing to some eternal being, the God, Jesus Christ, who has saved us. And he didn't say to us, "Be in logic of time to correspond to your time." No, he has said to us, "Stay true to the cause, to the church. Follow my rules, follow my teaching, try to realize my words and my orders that I gave you." So, and that is not about the perversion, individualism, or capitalism. So, I think that is very important to get to the origin of our religion, and to, if we can, to restore this original dimension of Christianity, not by fantasy, but following the strong rules of our holy fathers that were much more wiser and really holy than ourselves. So we need to respect the old Christian fathers like the absolute authorities. They were much wiser than ourselves. We need to follow them. We need to respect and not correct them. The thing pretending they were in failure and so on. They were much wiser and much holier, and that is our attitude. So we understand the Christ as eternal being that is present now. He is with us. He is working through us, through the providence, and he is always here. He could not belong to the past, but understanding of Christ, we need to find in a correct tradition, because it is not enough to say Christ. We need to understand who is he and how important he is because he is creator of the world. He is everything, and more than everything, much more.
It seems like the project of defeating modernity and processing it into a phase and going to the next phase. It seems that Christ, or the understanding that you're sharing with me right now, is essential to the project. It's essential to understanding how the people can be the people, and how the people can be served by the nobility and by the merchant class and the clergy, especially, as well, without an understanding, like a deep understanding of how Christ taught us to love each other and to see each other as distinct people, as individuals. That is how the process of modernity is redeemed and reversed.
So it's difficult to say, but I think that in the common people, in the peasants, above all, the Christ lives much more openly and than in the people from the highest positions. So I think that the simple people, they are keeper of the secret of the faith. So I believe in the people. I think that our Russian people has accepted Christ and never betrayed him. So the clergy or administrators and politicians, sometimes they betrayed Christianity, and our people stayed always true, always loyal to Christ. So I think that so-called simple people are not so simple. That is my faith. I believe in my Russian people, of peasants, people of Christian, people of love, and I think that the salvation comes with them, not with the educated class. But I think that at the same time, the higher the philosophers or priests or warriors should not only teach the masses, but learn from masses, from the people. So I think that the church is not just the clergy. In our Orthodox tradition, the church is the community of all baptized people. So they are part of the church. So that is collectivist understanding of the nature, very nature of the church. So I think that the future project should be religious, should be in favor of the awakening of the people, but in a spiritual way. So that should be awakening of the souls of the people, and that that is some eschatological aspect of my philosophy. So thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you, Professor, for your time. It's been an absolute honor to have you on, and thoroughly enjoyed this experience.
Thank you
very much.